Let's jump right into this with a massive paradox. We hear constantly about life expectancy and this booming longevity industry, right? But is simply adding more years to the clock really the ultimate prize? Today, we're going to break down the exact science of what actually extends your healthy years, relying purely on the data.
Think about it this way. Living to 90, that's just a raw number on a timeline. But gardening at 90, that represents something totally different. Active, capable, independent years. I mean, just hitting 90 isn't the real win if you can't travel or live on your own or, get your hands dirty in the garden. The longevity industry is fantastic at selling you on that first number, but the actual science focuses overwhelmingly on the second.
The key here is wrapping our heads around the exact definition of health span. It's not just about breathing, it's literally the number of years you spend free of significant chronic disease or disability. That is the actual metric we need to be optimizing for. Honestly, it's a completely different problem to solve than just figuring out how to delay death.
When you put these two side by side, a pretty stark reality emerges. Lifespan is just total years lived. Healthspan is years lived well. Now, U.S. life expectancy has absolutely shot up over the past century, which is great, but researchers keep pointing out a critical, kind of sobering insight. A massive chunk of those added lifespan years, they basically just stretch out a period of chronic illness. We're living longer for sure, but we aren't necessarily living better.
And this brings us to the true scientific goal. We don't want to just stretch out the timeline indefinitely if it means experiencing this long, slow decline. No way. We want to take that period of unhealthiness and compress it. Just squish it into the shortest possible window, ideally right at the very, very end of our 90s. Stretching lifespan without extending health span, that just prolongs the hardest part.
The consumer longevity market is absolutely exploding right now. You see all these supplements promising to activate specific longevity pathways. But here's the million-dollar question. Are these claims based on actual humans or just lab mice? If you look closely at the source data, you'll see a lot of companies hyping up early-stage cell cultures or animal models as if they were settled human science. And the reality is, results in mice rarely, if ever, translate to human outcomes at the exact same magnitude.
There's a quote that just hits the nail on the head here. It says, "The confidence in the marketing usually outpaces the confidence level of the actual underlying research." Now look, this doesn't mean all these compounds are snake oil. There is genuinely fascinating early research happening out there. But right now, the billion-dollar marketing budgets are writing checks the actual human science simply cannot cash.
So if expensive pills aren't the magic bullet, what does large-scale human research actually back up? Well, the undisputed champions are resistance training, cardiovascular fitness, social connection, and consistent sleep. I know, it's a way shorter, much less exotic list than the supplement industry wants you to believe. But crucially, none of these require a monthly subscription or some proprietary secret formula.
Let's dive into the first one, because it's a real game changer. Resistance training has some of the absolute strongest evidence in all of longevity science. Why? Because muscle mass and strength are directly linked to keeping you functionally independent. If your goal is to still be gardening at 90, picking up heavy things today is literally one of the very few interventions proven to preserve your physical capabilities tomorrow.
Then there's cardiovascular fitness. When researchers measure this using a metric called VO2 max, its predictive power is genuinely staggering. Across massive population studies, VO2 max consistently ranks as one of the strongest predictors for both lifespan and health span. Actually, the data shows it correlates more strongly with long-term health than almost all of those hyper-specific dietary debates you see endlessly argued about online.
Now, perhaps the most profound, and definitely the most overlooked pillar, is social connection. Having strong social ties is associated with meaningfully better health outcomes and a significantly lower mortality risk. It gets way less marketing attention than those exotic supplements, mostly because, well, you can't bottle up a dinner with friends and sell it for $80 a month. Yet it repeatedly proves to be this massive foundational factor for your health span.
Now you might be wondering, is any of the high-tech medical stuff worth it? Let's contrast evidence-based preventative medicine with speculative consumer wellness. To be totally fair to the medical field, clinical, medically supervised approaches like getting regular comprehensive blood panels and working with a doctor to catch risk factors early, those are highly valuable. They're deeply rooted in established science. That is totally different from the speculative consumer wellness space, which borrows clinical-sounding language but is built on a remarkably thin foundation of evidence.
Because the wellness industry is so good at using clinical-sounding language, you really need a toolkit. Try running any new protocol through this quick 3-step filter. Step 1.
Are there actual human trials or just lab mice? That is a completely different tier of evidence. Step 2. Does the protocol cover established basics like strength and sleep, or is it just trying to sell you a shortcut? And step 3. Is it measuring a true change in real, lived health span, or just shifting a biomarker on a piece of paper?
Let's get to the real longevity takeaway and chart a clear path forward.
Here is the honest, unvarnished truth, straight from the data. The longevity industry has built an incredibly compelling story around a very real, scientific concept. But the actual, evidence-backed path to a long health span, it's shorter, it's way less glamorous, and it's far less expensive than what's being heavily marketed to us. You simply cannot build a $30 billion industry purely on sleep, squats, cardio, and hanging out with your friends. And honestly, that is exactly why they are the undeniable foundation of human longevity.
I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. What is one longevity claim you've heard recently that you're still not entirely sure about? Think about it and try applying our new 3-step filter to it. Because cutting through the marketing hype and focusing on the actual science behind health span basics is, without a doubt, the single most important step toward living a genuinely longer and much better life.